This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Landmark College in beautiful Putney, Vermont, offering bachelor's and associate programs, short-term and summer programs for students who learn differently. To schedule a campus visit or to learn more, visit lcdistraction.org. Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction. And today we're going to do one of my favorite things. We're going to answer listener questions, which is one of my favorite things to do. And we're going to have the questions posed to me by one of my favorite people, Sarah Gurton, our unbelievably wonderful producer. So, Ms. Gurton, would you like to start with the very first listener question?
Okay, yes, we have a stack of listener questions here, so I'm glad it's your favorite thing because we have lots of them.
Good.
So this first one comes from a listener named Heather.
Hello, Heather.
She's 35 years old. She was diagnosed with ADHD a year ago, and it says bimodal favoring inattentive, underachiever is what it says. So my question is, when do you stop trying different meds? If you think you found one that works, how do you know that it's the best one for you? Should you continue trial and error to see if there is a best, or is good enough?
I'm of the good is good enough camp. People ask me this question all the time. They always want to say, well, this is good, but let's keep trying. You could spend a year trying different doses of different medications. Rarely have I found that approach to be beneficial. Almost invariably, the good is the good you're going to get. And trying other doses or other meds usually just leads to side effects or the same result, but not an improvement. Once in a great while, you will encounter some modest benefit, but it's just not worth the time and effort that you put in. So I would say once you get improvement on a medication, usually a stimulant medication, I'd say raise the flag, be happy, say thank you, and move on to the non-medication parts of treatment, which are really, in the long run, the most important.
This next question comes from a woman named Alyssa. Good afternoon, Dr. Hallowell. I am a special education teacher of English and find your podcast very helpful to not only understand my students, but for ways to assist them inside and outside the classroom. I've been very intrigued with becoming an ADHD coach and was wondering how one would receive those credentials. I have listened to many of your podcasts where you will give someone the title of an ADHD coach. Is this an accredited certification?
Well, there are a number of coach academies now. One that I am particularly fond of is run by David Gewerk, and you can Google him. If only I knew how to spell his name. I think it's Giwerc. I've known him for years. He's really terrific. You can go to Terry Matlin's blog and her website, TerryMatlen, and get recommendations from her. And so there are a number of coaching academies, very well-respected centers that train and certify coaches. Now, bear in mind, none of these is licensed by a state agency, and so in a sense you're left with the question, who certifies the certifiers? And the answer is nobody. They kind of certify themselves. But that's okay. These are respectable people who want to maintain the standards of the profession. One of these days we'll probably get some kind of codified standards where state agencies or federal agencies will get involved, which of course will create problems of their own, but will bring a level of standards that will have exams and will have board certification and all that kind of stuff that you get with doctors and nurses and social workers and the like. But for now, there are these academies that kind of supervise themselves, and they do a good job. So, it's not like some kind of renegade group of people. These are people who work hard to gain the certification they gain, who work hard to provide a quality service and do it very well. Coaching remains, I think, one of the absolute best of the non-medication interventions we have. Coaching also remains practitioner dependent. It really does depend upon who's doing the coaching. But that's also true of psychotherapy. It depends upon who's doing the psychotherapy, what kind of result you get. It's not just what kind of training you have or what method you're following, but who's doing it. So when you're looking for a coach, not only do you want to know, where did you get your training and what certification do you have, but are we a good fit? But if you're looking to become a coach yourself, you can Google coaching academies, and you'll find 3 or 4 of them. You can search out Terry Matlin or David Quirk or some of the others. And I hope they're not offended that I didn't mention them. I just don't keep them, stored in my brain's Rolodex. But they're all good. I can't think of any that are not good. It is an extremely useful and valuable service.
Okay. This next one comes from a mom named Lisa. Lisa writes, I have a question I can't find any answer to no matter how many ways I've rearranged the words.
Well, I hope I can answer it for you.
My daughter doesn't have ADHD. She's adopted, but I do, and badly. Why can't I find any information on how to parent a non-ADHD kid? All of the searches come up with how to parent your ADHD kid when you have ADHD. All the information assumes that your child has it too. I just want to know how to be a good mother to my 10-year-old. I'm failing miserably, according to her. And she's right. The house is a mess. I'm trying to figure out my brain and get it to function better. But in the meantime, it's causing huge bouts of anxiety and stress in me and great annoyance in her.
Oh, well, my goodness, there are any number of books on parenting and any number of books on how to treat ADD in an adult. So you just need help with both of those. You need to make sure your ADD is being treated properly. And the mainstays of that are, number 1, education. So read my book, Delivered from Distraction. You'll learn about it. You want to take a strength-based approach. So, what you've got is a race car brain with bicycle brakes. So you work on strengthening the brakes. And the way to do that is a combination of medication, if it should happen to work, and coaching and structure. Exercise, meditation, those are the mainstays of what you need. If you happen to have a spouse, make sure that he, is supportive and helpful. Make sure your household has structure. So, and structure will sort of do the organizing for you when you have routines and structure. You can enlist the help of your child in setting up structure. If she doesn't have ADHD, she's probably better at it than you are. So you can get her to help, get your husband to help, get whatever other children you might have to help, and turn it into a fun undertaking. This doesn't have to be a struggle. In fact, that's what you want to watch out for. Watch out for the struggle. And watch out for your, taking on more than you can do, blaming yourself. Watch out for saying, I'm a failure because I can't do it. You can't do everything. And, you want to do what you're good at and then delegate or hire out the rest. But make sure you're getting your ADHD properly treated with education, coaching, structure, and medication. Throw in exercise and meditation, and you'll have a wonderful package. And a strength-based approach so that you recognize your talents and not just focus on your deficiency. Dealt with properly. You're not treating a disability. You're unwrapping, your talents. You're developing what you're good at, not just dealing with what you're bad at. And that's real important because you don't want to be dragged around. You don't want to be dragged down by low self-esteem. You want to be lifted up by feelings of hope and pride and exultation in who you are and feeling excited about being a mom. Now, in terms of how to be a good parent, gosh, there's lots of books. I wrote one myself called The Childhood Roots of Adult Happiness. Of all the books I've written, and I've written 20 now, that's my favorite book. It has nothing to do with ADD, and it has everything to do with raising children. The Childhood Roots of Adult Happiness. It's a short book, and it's got sort of 5 basic steps of what kids need in order to grow up to be what we want them all to be: happy, fulfilled, successful, if for no other reason because it's short, which is good for people who have ADD. And it's also very practical. It's very practical. The 5 steps that I lay out are, steps that you can follow quite easily. So those are 2 books, if you will, Delivered from Distraction and The Childhood Roots of Adult Happiness. You need to make sure your ADHD is well taken care of, and you want to have a plan for raising a child. A lot of people raise children with no plan whatsoever, and they're kind of changing all the time. And that leads to a lot of inconsistency, particularly if you have ADHD. That's not good. And that's probably what your daughter is upset about. She never knows what to expect, and that's not good for any child, for any person for that matter. Be glad of your ADHD. Don't regret it. Just learn how to manage it properly. And let us know how this works out. Come back to me. Give us a progress report.
This next one comes from Isaac, and he is a staff psychologist at Bucknell University.
Oh, hello, Isaac.
He says, I'm a psychologist with ADHD who didn't get diagnosed until I was in the thick of my graduate training. Anyhow, I made an impatient attempt at trying medication when I was initially diagnosed and had an unpleasant experience with the stimulant medication I tried. I have, I believe, largely managed on being highly physically active, and I've been a coffee drinker for all my adult life. I'm in a job now where I've had enough struggles keeping up with details that I'm working with a coach and trying medications again just to see if something will help. I know I've heard Ned talk about being a part of the 20% who don't respond to meds, but I'm realizing there's not much out there on how to tell if you are just not someone who responds well to meds. I'd appreciate any light you could shed on this.
Well, as I say, there's about 20% of us, like me, who do not respond to medication, although, I'm also a coffee drinker, so you could say I am a responder to caffeine, and I am indeed a responder to caffeine. I drink caffeine every day, and it helps me. So you could say caffeine is my medication, and that may be your medication, Isaac. But don't give up on prescription meds until you've tried them, and there are basically 3 that you want to try. You want to try amphetamine, which would be Adderall, in differing doses. Make sure a common reason for quote-unquote failure is you don't go to a high enough dose. And then methylphenidate, which would be Ritalin, and again, make sure you go to a high enough dose. And then 1 non-stimulant. And then my favorite is Wellbutrin. So try at least 1 from each of those 3 categories. And make sure you go to a high enough dose with the stimulants. A common reason for non-responder is you don't go to a high enough dose. So work with a doctor who knows what he or she is doing and is willing to take you to a high enough dose. And the way you assess that is you keep increasing the dose until you get side effects. Now, you almost always get appetite suppression, so that doesn't count. As long as you're not losing weight, you can keep increasing the dose. The side effects that warrant leveling off or lowering the dose are elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure, or agitation, not liking the way it makes you feel, anything like that, anything beyond appetite suppression. So it's worth pursuing it because when meds work, they're the quickest and easiest intervention we've got, and you want to make sure they're not going to work before you give up on them. And once you've decided you're a non-responder and you go with caffeine, that's what I've been using for my whole life, then you pursue the rest of the non-medication regimen: coaching, marry the right person, find the right job, exercise, meditation, and whatever other, of the various ancillary non-medication treatments you might want to pursue. But it's very common for people to give up on medication too quickly because they haven't really tried stimulants or a non-stimulant in high enough doses.
Okay, our last question here is in reference to your new book. It says, Dr. Hallowell, I also come from a crazy family. I'm 9th in a brood of 10 kids with a sadly, terribly abusive, alcoholic, probably bipolar father, though never diagnosed. And your book was powerfully affirming to me that people can come from beginnings like that and survive and even thrive. I am most impressed with how you've managed to come out on the other side of your childhood experiences as such an enlightened person. Somehow, that is the thing that I've been burdened with the most, and the part of your story with which I'm most enamored. How did you move past the victim mentality to see love and forgiveness? You seem to speak from such love and joy. How did that happen? So much of what I feel is pain and shame.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your lovely note. And my honest answer is I don't know. And part of why I wrote the book is to sort of let my story speak for itself. Archibald MacLeish had a great line. He said, "A poem should not mean just be," and I guess I wanted to let my story just be and let other people infer whatever they wanted to. The story is there. And I don't really know why I have a song in my heart, so to speak. I do, that's for sure. I do have a song in my heart. I also have a dark side. I do have a sadness in my heart that I carry around. But I think probably most of us do. The song wins out. The bluebird of happiness, as my mother used to call it, wins out. And I think she gave me that for all she had her various problems. She also was an inveterate optimist. She truly was, and she always was looking for the bright side, and I inherited that from her. So I think there's a genetic component to it. I think, I was very lucky. I always found teachers who pointed me in the direction not of saccharine positivity, but in the direction of hope. In the direction of you can do it. My 12th grade English teacher challenged me to write a novel, and lo and behold, I did. But that was a positive challenge, but it was also daunting. You write a novel? I mean, gosh. But implicit in that was the notion that he thought I could do it. And then I did it. And by getting me to do something that I would have thought was downright impossible, he changed my life forever. The school minister at my high school, Exeter, was a man named Frederick Buechner, who was just a phenomenal preacher, and he kind of got me excited with the possibilities of spirituality, but not in a Bible thumping way at all, but in a sort of just in a sort of exciting sense of what pursuing faith is about. It's a pursuit for me. It's not a settled matter ever. It's a pursuit, but it's one that I've continued to do, and I think that's part of it too. And it's just a positivity that bubbles up within me more days than not. I have days where I can feel pretty gloomy. I can be Eeyore for sure. But more days than not, it's the bubbling up, the coming down on the side of hope. But I think the reason I wrote the book is to let the story just sort of stand there and say, for those of us who experienced whatever less than ideal situation, it doesn't have to win out. There are forces that really envelop us all the time, that are kind of beckoning us toward a positive place, that are kind of drawing us, if we'll notice them, if we'll respond to them, if we'll see them, if we'll see the little sparkling stone at the side of the road, if we'll see the little flash in the water that can pick us up, that can what's the line from Robert Frost? The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given me a change of heart and saved some part of a day I had rued. I didn't quote it exactly right, but it's the notion that, the hemlock tree, the negative, but the way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. The littlest things can change minute to minute, day to day, week to week, and if we remain receptive, I guess that's it. Don't harden your heart. Don't harden your heart. Don't seal it over. It's never a done deal. Even after we die, I think, it's never a done deal. We just don't know. And just stay that open. We just don't know. And if you can stay that open, then life will surprise you day after day, and sometimes in good ways. Well, that's a long answer to your question, but your question deserved something more than a short answer, and thank you so much for writing in. For now, let me say goodbye. This is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction. If you have a question for me or a show idea for us, email it to connect@distractionpodcast.com. Or better yet, call us and leave a voicemail. We love hearing your voices. We really, really do. And we like to include them in the show. Call 844-55-CONNECT and leave us a message. We need to hear from you. We look forward to hearing from you. We want to hear from you. So 844-55-CONNECT or email at connect@distractionpodcast.com. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our sound engineers and editors are the wonderfully talented Pat Keogh and Chris Latham, and our producer is the multi-talented and unbelievably brilliant Sarah Curtin.